Good evening. I tried this last night with the other class, and I had the camera facing me, like to take a selfie so I could see what it was actually recording. But then I checked it like at the break, and it was like mirror image. So everything that was on the PowerPoint slides was backwards. So that's not a real good plan to have that. So I had to do it this way. So if you see it stop or something, it looks like some of you sitting right here. Am I in the video? Okay, all right. Is my face in the video? Okay. Actually, not that my face will make a lot of difference in this, because normally if you're listening to somebody speak, you're watching their face, their facial expressions, you're watching their mouth, and that can help you with pronunciation and listening comprehension. But with the mask on, you lose all that, because you can't see the shape of my mouth or anything like that, because we're all wearing masks. That's probably one of the biggest disadvantages of doing classes like this, where if we were on Zoom, then I wouldn't have to wear a mask and you could see my face. Not that it's a beautiful face, but listening, understanding, comprehension, a lot of that comes from being able to see a person's mouth and their expressions. Unfortunately, we don't have that because the Ministry of Education in Korea has decided that we should be on campus. So here we are. You can see that I'm making a recording here. The reason for that is we were told that if somebody is in quarantine and they cannot come to class, that we need to provide material for them. Either materials, at least something like notes, PowerPoint slides, or a separate recording, or a video of some sort. So I don't have the time or energy to make a separate recording for that, so I'm going to try as much as possible to make some sort of recording of the classes. This will not be, I guess, as good of quality as you would have on just like a Zoom recording. Especially the PowerPoint slides don't show up as well, I think, on a camera like this as they do on Zoom, because on Zoom basically it's recording the computer screen. So the PowerPoint slides are very sharp, very clear. Also on Zoom, if I'm sitting at a computer, I can use the mouse as a laser pointer, and that shows up on the screen. If I'm in a class like this, I will use sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've got a few of these, and sometimes they're unpredictable. I will use an actual laser pointer. I am guessing that this laser pointer will not really show up on the video. But I'm also not going to stand at the computer and lecture from there. So the recordings are basically for emergency use, for people who are in quarantine. And I don't remember if anyone in this class was, but already this week I've got several students among my classes who have either tested positive or are still recovering from COVID or are in quarantine because of COVID. So I decided it would probably be simpler and less stressful to just go ahead and try to record. These are not going to be professional recordings. But if somebody is unable to come to class because of COVID, at least they'll have something to watch. Not perfect, but better than nothing. And this is what I used last night for your department. What I used during the day today for my regular classes, I actually did a Zoom recording. But to do that, I need a webcam and a long cable, which I've got a webcam of my own. But the cable's only about this long, so it wouldn't work. And the one from my department, I have to turn in at 6 o'clock, so I don't have that available. The other thing that is useful, obviously this microphone situation is not ideal. You can see but that's as long as the cord is. Unfortunately, your department does not have a wireless microphone. So I'm just trying to stretch this as much as I can. So I'm going to try to find a wireless microphone somewhere. Like the type, you have like the little box, the receiver transmitter, and then like just a little wire, and you clip the microphone onto your collar. I don't know exactly how to install something like that to use on this computer, but I'm going to try to find some way to do that. And with a large class like this and a large room and wearing a mask, I think that it's probably better if I use a microphone so that you can hear me. If you are not, can you guys in the back hear okay? Is it loud enough, clear enough in the back? Okay, if it's not, there's several seats down here. Okay, maybe just don't sit like right here, because then we're like a little too close. Okay, but over on this side there's about 6-8 seats here if anyone needs to sit closer. Also for COVID, just a few things to keep in mind. We do need to keep the windows open, okay, for ventilation, for fresh air, and we'll also keep the doors open to try to get some air. Hopefully, I haven't felt a breeze all day, but hopefully there's some air moving through. So I think that very back window does not work. But the others, if you can just, anyone sitting near them, just kind of make sure they stay open. They don't really lock in place. So sometimes the wind will kind of push them shut. But if you guys by the windows, just keep an eye on those. Is that one open, Ashley? Are both of those open? Are the windows open? Is the window open? Both of them? I can't tell if the front one is open from the angle. Is it open? Okay, all right. Is that back one open on the side? Is the window open? You can check it. You can stand up and look. Is it open? Open? Yes? Okay. All right. And also, like, make sure you keep the doors open as well. And hopefully we'll get a little fresh air through the room. It's also warm, so I will keep the air conditioning running as much as possible. That is not energy efficient, to have air conditioning on and windows open, but windows closed is not a good idea, and it's too hot not to have the air conditioning on. So it's better to waste a little electricity than to sweat more. I'm already hot with just, even with the air conditioning on, I'm hot. The mask obviously makes things feel a lot warmer, especially when you're talking. Obviously, you guys know that if you're, I assume most of you have to wear a mask during the day when you're working. You know that probably better than I do, how uncomfortable it can be. But that's what we need to do. Okay, that's slightly better, tiny bit. Okay, tonight obviously it's our first class, so we're just going to do some basic introduction stuff tonight. By the way, you will notice I am sitting. On Thursdays I have about 6 hours of class before this one, so I'm tired. And I also have some disc problems in my back, which makes like my hips and knees hurt a lot of times. So standing for, sometimes, today actually, any standing is just kind of painful. So I'm not sitting just because I'm lazy, but because I'm tired and my back hurts. So please understand. Some people think this doesn't look good, but oh well, that's their opinion. It always wants to update everything, and that freezes the computer. Okay, so obviously this course is for the Future Convergence University. You guys are in the Department of Financial Investment. The course title is Practical English for Finance and Banking. Okay, that's the English title of the course. So what does that mean? What's practical English? What does that even mean? What does practical English mean? Anybody? Practical English is not theory, not a bunch of formulas. I am not teaching you financial theories, strategies, methods. I'm not teaching economics or retirement planning or anything like that. That is not the purpose of this class. Practical English means it's not theory, but it's practical usage, like everyday, common, real life usage of English for finance and banking. In financial situations, in financial usage, words related to or used in finance and banking, or phrases, expressions that are related to finance, to banking, but I'm not teaching you economic theories. So we are going to look at some vocabulary, a lot of vocabulary, phrases, expressions used in banking situations, and also some just practical, like, banking situations, or some things in banking that you don't normally see in Korea. Okay, let me put it that way. Some things like with checking accounts and things especially that you don't have in Korea, that you don't use in Korea, that we're going to look at. Okay. So practical English is like actual usage in like real life situations. Okay, so that's what we're going to focus on. My name is John X. Hall. My first name is John. My middle initial is X. My last name is Hall. Okay? So, for the past 2.5 years, basically, most courses have been online, on Zoom. I actually expected, I thought that classes this fall would probably also be on Zoom because of the recent surge or spike in cases again, but apparently the Ministry of Education has decided that it's time to be back in the classroom, even though there's a big spike in cases. And of course, all of that is due to this thing. For the past 2.5 years, I was able to avoid getting infected. But then, unfortunately, about, I guess almost 3 weeks ago now, I tested positive for COVID-19. First time. Started off just sore throat, fairly high fever, like 38.5, felt terrible. Went to the doctor, tested positive, and because of my age and some other conditions, I did persuade the doctor to prescribe Paxlovid, which is the Pfizer drug for COVID-19, which you just take for 5 days. So fortunately, I did not have any really severe symptoms. I didn't have like shortness of breath, or I had some of my friends, when they got it, they had really severe coughing, or even like chest pain or something. Fortunately, I didn't have those symptoms. I also kept an eye on my blood oxygen levels. Are you guys familiar with this little device? It's called a pulse oximeter. See at the top there. Pulse is like your heart rate, how many beats per minute your heart is beating. Oximeter is kind of a combination of oxygen and meter. So it measures the percentage of oxygen in your blood, or the concentration of oxygen in your blood. Because if you have like infection and you're coughing, if you have shortness of breath, you may not be getting enough oxygen in your system, which causes problems with your organs not having enough oxygen. Your heart, your kidneys, your liver, your brain. If they're not getting enough oxygen, that can be very serious. So this is something simple you can use at home. If you don't have one of these, buy one. Okay, it's a simple little device. You slide it on your finger, turn it on, and it shows the two numbers, oxygen and pulse. But if you have COVID or pneumonia or some other like respiratory infection, this can help show you if you're getting enough oxygen. And you might think, well, I already had COVID, I don't need one. You can get COVID again, or a family member could get COVID. So it's a good thing to have. Your blood oxygen should be in the like upper 90s. Okay, this one shows 99. Mine is usually not quite that high. Mine is usually like 96, 97. It's maybe a little bit low, but that seems normal for me. If it gets below 90, you're in trouble. Okay, that's when you need medical help. If it's like in the 80s, or if it got like to 70, you're in serious trouble because you're not getting enough oxygen in your body. So it's a simple thing to have. So I suggest you get one. I'm sure that some larger pharmacies or hospital pharmacies sell them. You can also order them online. This is just a screenshot from Coupon. Okay, they're not that expensive. I've seen some even cheaper than that, maybe 10,000 won. They have some expensive ones, but you don't need that. So for 20,000 won, you can get one. Okay, so if you don't have one, get one. Make sure you also have a thermometer so you can check your temperature. So I was doing that. My blood oxygen was okay. I just felt really bad, had a lot of sinus congestion, mucus, that like liquid in your nose. If it gets like thick, it can kind of like block your nose and make it hard to breathe. I had a lot of that. And that causes what we call sinusitis, sinus infection. Inside your head, like up here in your forehead, your cheeks, and along the sides here, you have these openings in your skull. Kind of like inside the bone. And when you breathe in, the air goes into those spaces inside your head. Some of it. If your mucus, if you got too much or it gets too thick, it can build up inside the sinuses. It can't escape. It's not supposed to be there. It can't get out, and then it gets infected. And that's what happened with me. Kind of after that first week, then I got the sinus infection. Where it just kind of feels like your head is going to explode. A lot of headache and congestion. So I went to the doctor, and I was still running a fever every day. So I had actually asked the department if it would be possible to teach online for a week or two. There's quite a few seats over here. There's several seats, open seats over here. I had asked if it might be possible to teach online for a week or two while I recovered, and they said no. That I could not do a Zoom class this week. Kind of ironic that for 2.5 years we taught online to try to reduce the spread of COVID. But then once I actually got COVID, I could not teach online. Seems kind of backwards. But they said the only option would be I could cancel class and then have a make-up class later. And the make-up class, they wanted it to be face-to-face, but if that's not possible, you could do the make-up class online or do a recording. So I couldn't do this week on Zoom, but I could do a Zoom class or a recording later and add a week to the class or add a day somewhere. So I decided, rather than doing that, to just try to go ahead and teach this week. So Monday, I did do all of my classes on Zoom. But then today, of course, here I am, and last night, and all day today. So, yeah. Like I said, apparently the Ministry of Education decided that kind of like no matter what, they wanted us back in the classroom, even though we've got this surge going on right now. They decided it was time for everyone to be back on campus. So here we are in the classroom. Now, because we are in the classroom, obviously, we do need to take some precautions because COVID is still there. It is still spreading. That's one of the problems with this current variant. It's BA5, they call it. It spreads very easily. It's easy to catch, even easier, much easier than original COVID. So we have to take some precautions. This little image shows a dog demonstrating how to wear a mask or not wear a mask. Which one is the correct method? A, B, C, or D? D? C, yes. So obviously, if you're wearing a mask, just hanging off your ear, that does not do anything. With COVID, with a disease like this, the thing you're trying to avoid is these respiratory droplets. So respiratory refers to breathing. Respiration is breathing in and out. So when you breathe in and out, or you talk or sing, air comes out. The droplets is those little tiny drops of water, moisture, that are in the air that you're breathing in and out. So the idea of the mask is, if you're not sick, to prevent other people's virus from getting into your nose or mouth, because that's the main way to get infected. If you are sick, the mask is to block your breath from infecting other people. So if it's hanging, so you need to block both your mouth and nose. That's where you breathe. Most of your breathing is through your nose for most people. And of course, air comes out of your mouth if you're talking or singing or shouting. So it's important to keep both of them covered. So hanging off of your ear, completely ineffective. I see a lot of people doing B with it under their chin. It's almost like a fashion item at that point. Oh, I've got a mask on under their chin. But it is doing absolutely nothing for them or anyone else. D, this is also really, really common, putting it over your mouth but not your nose. Again, you breathe in and out through your nose. So you can easily get infected that way, or if you are infected, you can easily spread it that way. So don't do that. Okay? So C, it must cover completely your mouth and nose, both. Seems very simple, but a lot of people have trouble doing that. So make sure you wear a mask. And I see, of course, all of you are. A lot of people like to wear these, call it a surgical mask, or sometimes a dental mask. The problem with these is that they usually leave a lot of gaps, a gap, G-A-P, openings on the sides or under the chin or around the nose. They usually don't seal very well. So if you're breathing in and out, air goes in and out around the mask all the time. So in general, these are not very effective. Now, it's possible to make them fit correctly, but most people don't. I would recommend wearing a higher quality mask, like a KF94. And you're fortunate in Korea. These masks are high quality and they're easy to find. And they're not that expensive. In the US, we use N95 is like the kind of the best mask. These are similar to that. And so these are considered really good masks. Find one that is comfortable for you. Try a few different kinds. If you don't have one, if you don't like the one you've got, try a few different brands. You want something that feels comfortable, but also you want to make sure you have that good seal, so you don't have gaps under your chin or on the sides or around your nose. They should all have like a little metal piece on the nose that you can kind of squeeze to make sure that you have a good seal here. That's important. If you don't, then it's not going to work as well. I do have some extras. If anyone needs a mask, if yours is, if I don't know, your mask is dirty or you've been wearing it all day and it's too sweaty inside, or you just don't have a good mask. I have a bunch, so if you need one, I've got some up here. Help yourself. Okay, feel free. Don't just take them all home, but if you need some during class, please help yourself to those. I would rather give you those and have you protected and have you protecting the rest of us, rather than wearing an ineffective mask. I've also got hand sanitizer and some sanitizing wipes. If like you feel like your desk area is not clean, if it looks, or you want to sanitize it before you put your things down, I'll have that with me every night too. Okay. I've gotten, so I like the ones with like the middle, the seam in the middle here. Feels like it fits my face a little bit better. Of course, a lot of them are the 3-section ones. Those are also KF94. That's what these are. Same company, but I just like the fit of these a little better. I see some people wear these, but they don't open them all the way. They only use like the middle section. They don't open it over their nose or over the chin. So obviously they don't have a good seal. So common sense, you would think, but some people have not figured out how to properly wear those. And of course, all of this is because of this guy. So what is this called? What is this? Virus. Is that what you said? Did you say virus? Okay. Unfortunately, it's a little hard to hear you, especially with the masks on. For all of us, it makes it more difficult, which is the main reason I'm using the microphone, because the mask does kind of muffle my voice. Like on a car or a motorcycle, you use a muffler to make it quiet, make the engine, the exhaust sound quieter. The mask also kind of muffles your voices, and my voice. So that's why I'm using the microphone. So yeah, it's a virus. Exactly what virus is it? Coronavirus, or a little more specifically, novel coronavirus. Okay. Why is it called a coronavirus? Spreads through the air? Okay, yeah, it does, but why coronavirus? What does that mean? If you look at the shape of the virus, this is a really clear image. Probably used an electron microscope to take this image. But if you look at the surface, you see all these spikes sticking up. And when scientists looked at these, they thought it looks kind of like the spikes or the points that you would see on a crown. And the word corona means crown in Latin. So coronavirus basically means a crown-shaped virus. A virus with these spikes on it. Just like all of these crowns have spikes on them, on the surface, or going around. So that's a coronavirus. It just kind of looks like similar to a crown. All right. What about novel? What does that mean? When you hear the word novel, you probably think of this, a book. We have books called novels. You might recognize some of these. There's a Harry Potter there, Lord of the Rings, Fahrenheit 451, Divergent. Novels. All different kinds. Fiction, nonfiction, romance, fantasy, science fiction, all different kinds of novels. But the virus isn't a book. The word novel in this case means new. New. Because there have been several coronaviruses that scientists know, but this one was a new one that they had never seen before. So it's a new coronavirus, a novel coronavirus. And we use the word novel in conversation sometimes. Like if somebody thinks of a new idea, like a new invention, a new way of doing something, we could say, oh, that's a novel idea. I've never seen that before. Or maybe they come up with a solution to a problem, a way of solving something. Oh, that's a novel solution. That's a novel approach, a novel way of doing something. So we use it in conversation that way too. Here, novel coronavirus is a new coronavirus. And some coronaviruses you've probably heard of before. This table shows a few of those. And on here, Influenza virus. This is the disease-causing pathogen, the thing that makes you sick, the virus. Influenza virus. You're very familiar with influenza. The disease it causes is the flu. Now, in Korea, I think people usually say influenza, but in America, we just say, I've got the flu. I got the flu. Or if you get the vaccination for the flu, the influenza vaccination, we just call it a flu shot. A flu shot. A shot. A vaccination. You won't see signs that say influenza vaccination. They say flu shot. Okay. You're probably familiar with SARS. Severe, acute, respiratory breathing syndrome. Severe, serious, acute, respiratory syndrome. Syndrome is like a group of symptoms. The disease. The virus was the SARS-CoV. SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. CoV, coronavirus. CoV. You probably heard of MERS. Middle East respiratory syndrome. So the RS here is the same as the RS here, respiratory syndrome. The virus is the MERS-CoV, the MERS coronavirus, because they all have that spike on the outside. And then, of course, now we have COVID-19. The virus is the SARS-CoV-2. SARS-CoV-2. SARS coronavirus number 2. Now, you'll see that SARS-CoV-2 used in like medical information from like CDC, or some news reports will use that. We don't really say that in conversation, but in like publications, stories about the virus, they will use that. So we have SARS-CoV, MERS-CoV, and SARS-CoV-2. All right. Excuse me. By the way, I will try to use the air conditioning as much as possible because I get hot easily. If you get cold easily, bring a sweater or a jacket. Okay. It's easier to put on a sweater because I can't take my shirt off. Okay. So if you get cold easily, please bring a sweater or something with you. So we have the novel coronavirus, that's the virus itself. The disease is COVID-19. Where does that name come from? Co comes from corona. The VI comes from virus. D means disease. 19, of course, is the year that it was first discovered, okay, in December of 2019. So, COVID-19 simply means coronavirus disease. Now, in Korea, you usually don't call it COVID-19. Sometimes I'll see Corona-19 here in Korea, or just simply Corona. In the US, we don't call it Corona. Okay? Sometimes, sort of very informally, we might say Rona, kind of short for Corona, but this is more almost like slang. Very informal, very casual, almost like joking. Like, oh, I hope I don't get the Rona. Okay? You will not see that in a newspaper article, journal, anything like that. You will see these: novel coronavirus, or simply coronavirus. Or I was just talking to my dad a couple of days ago, and we were talking about this. And a lot of people in the US now just say, they call it the virus. Because, of course, it is the most well-known virus at the moment. It's obviously the one that has changed the world for the last couple of years. So people will just say the virus, meaning the coronavirus. Or SARS-CoV-2, you will hear newspaper articles when they're talking specifically about the virus itself. COVID-19 is the disease, the sickness. So the coronavirus will give you COVID-19. Or we simply say COVID. Okay, and that's what people would say, they've got COVID. They usually don't say, I have COVID-19. They'll say, I have COVID, or I got COVID, or I got the virus. Okay? So just a little difference in language, in usage. And of course, there have been some different variants of COVID. different versions of it from the original. Some of these you've probably heard of, some you may not. This is the Greek alphabet, and that's what they started with. So they started with alpha and beta. I heard those names a little bit when they first came out, but they did not become a serious problem. They didn't spread that much. Then there was gamma, delta. Delta became very well known. In Korea, that's the one that was here last fall. Delta was very serious. Probably caused more severe disease than original COVID. So that one, I'm sure you've heard of. Oh. Others, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa. Kappa didn't hear anything about those if they used them. I heard a little bit about lambda and mu. Mu was a concern for a while, but again, it didn't spread widely, so it wasn't a big problem. The next letter is nu. They skipped that letter because it sounds just like the word new, N-E-W. So they didn't have a delta nu or a COVID nu because that sounds like new coronavirus, novel coronavirus. Next one is chai. Now the spelling here is the same spelling as a common family name in China. President Xi. Different pronunciation, but Xi Jinping, his name is spelled X-I. So scientists did not want to use a word or a letter that sounded like or that was the same as a common word in usage. Omicron, of course, that's the one we've got right now. And with Omicron, we've got like BA4, BA5. BA5 is probably the one that is the one that's most common in Korea right now. That's probably the one I got because it spreads very, very easily. Even though I tried to be careful, wore a mask, stayed away from people, didn't eat in restaurants when there were other people there, all of those things. Tried to be as careful as possible, but it still got me. That's the one we're still dealing with now. It's a type of Omicron. And then the next letter in the alphabet is pi. There will not be a coronavirus pi, because pi is what we use for measuring like circumference of circles. It's in a lot of mathematical and scientific formulas, so they won't use that either. They'll skip it. So that's as far as we are right now with it. Which, of course, is why we have been online for a couple of years with Zoom meetings. Will we have Zoom classes this semester? It's possible, if there would be another big surge or something. At this point, I think it's unlikely, because even though we're in this surge right now with BA5, the Ministry of Education wanted us in the classroom. Even though case numbers are still pretty high, and when they made that decision, they were even higher than they are now. So I think it's unlikely that we'll go on Zoom, but if we have to, we will. If you look on iClass, there is a Zoom link there. So I've set up a Zoom link for the class so that if we need it, it's already there. Okay, and you can just click that link to join Zoom. If we don't need it, then we obviously won't use it. Okay? All right. Okay. Tonight, of course, we need to do just some basic course introduction stuff. Make sure that you have something to write with, some paper, pen, or pencil. Okay. You should, of course, have that available for every class. Always bring writing materials. And I know that some of you are using electronic devices, laptops, notebook computers, or tablets or something. That's fine if you want to use those. I don't care. But they have done some studies. And those studies have shown that they compared people who took notes on a computer and people who took notes writing by hand. People who wrote by hand remembered more. Because when you're typing, most people can type faster than they can write. So if they're listening and taking notes on the computer, they're not really thinking about the information that much, they're just typing. Oh, type. And they can type a lot, and they can have a lot of notes. But they don't remember what they typed, because there's really no effort. If they're writing by hand, then they can't write as fast, so they actually have to think about what they're going to write. So they have to think about what's most important. What are the key words? How are these ideas related? Maybe they summarize the information before they write it. So there's more thought that goes into the writing. Also, when you write, that physical movement of writing creates like a muscle memory. You have a memory of writing it. And also looking at it as you write it. So they tested these people. They had groups of people, same information, same time. Some people took notes typing, some people wrote by hand. Then they tested them. The people who wrote by hand remembered more. They got a higher score. People who typed had more notes, but they didn't remember what they said. So, something to think about. Okay? Also, when you write by hand, when you have those notes, when you study, if you write it, you're using the muscles in your hand to write. You're looking at it with your eyes. If you say it out loud, then you also hear it at the same time. So you're involving your muscles, your eyes, your voice, and your ears all together. So you're more likely to remember it. Okay? So I would recommend take notes by hand rather than typing. So, one thing I always talk about at the beginning is how should you address your professor. Okay. The word address, we use a lot. We talk about email addresses, a website address. If you're going somewhere in your car, you need to look up the street address. If you're sending a letter to somebody, you need to address the envelope. Write their address on the envelope. You call that addressing the envelope. Also, if you speak to somebody, you talk to a person or a group of people, you address them. You can address an audience. Excuse me. Address a class. On campus, they have some speakers around campus. And sometimes in the morning, or I've heard them, I think, at lunchtime, playing music and making announcements so that everybody can hear them. We call that a public address system. Public address, or PA system, public address. Capital P period, capital A period, PA system. You hear those in like department stores or in stadiums. At Home Plus, they'll use the PA system to play music. They might announce specials or tell you when the store is closing over the PA system, public address system. How should you address your professor? How should you talk to them? What should you say when you want to get their attention? What do you call them, basically? My name is John X. Hall. If you want to ask me a question, should you say, excuse me, John X. Hall, I have a question. That sounds silly. Okay, to use my complete name. That sounds strange. So don't do that. Dr. Hall sounds very nice, but I am not a doctor. Okay, I do not have a PhD. Now, a lot of the professors, probably most of your Korean professors, do have a PhD. So to call them Dr., I don't know your professors, but Dr. Kim, Dr. Lee, that would be correct. I have a master's degree, an MBA, Master of Business Administration, so I'm not a doctor. Mr. Hall is my father. Obviously, I'm old enough to be called Mr., but if I hear Mr. Hall, I still look for my dad. Because that's him, not me. And, yeah, that's my dad. Teacher. I am a teacher. In this class, I am your teacher, but my name is not Teacher. I have a question. To me, that reminds me of what children in America do before they learn how to use people's names. Teacher. So to me, it sounds kind of childish. So I am a teacher, but my name is not Teacher. Okay? John. John is my first name. And people have been calling me John my entire life. And I'm okay with that. It's my name. So, if you want to, you may call me John. My first name. Now, can you call your Korean professors by their first name? No. Can't do that. That would be considered rude. What about other foreign professors? Is it okay if they're a foreigner to use their first name? Maybe. They will tell you if it's okay or not. They will usually tell you, please call me, and then they'll tell you what to call them. Okay? I do not like things that are really formal. I prefer things a little less formal, a little more casual. So I'm okay if you use my first name. That does not bother me. But some professors don't like that. They're not comfortable with that. They want you to use their title, or Mr. or Professor or something, and that's okay. It's a personal choice. Okay. Now, some of you might say, okay, I understand it's okay to call you John, but I'm not comfortable with that. Some of you might just say, I can't do that. I can't use your first name, and that's okay. If you're not comfortable with that, if you prefer, you may call me Professor. That is my job title, Professor. Or you could call me Professor Hall. My title plus my last name, Professor Hall. Not Professor John. Okay, we wouldn't use the title with first name. That sounds strange. So you can call me John, or Professor Hall. Any of those are okay. Now, when we're speaking, we say Professor. But if you are writing it, like if you're sending an email or something, you can abbreviate Professor, capital P, ROF, period. But we still say Professor Hall. It's just a written abbreviation. Just like Mr. We can write MR, period, but we still say Mr. Okay, same thing here. You write PROF, period, but you say Professor. And you'd use that if you're writing my name in like a sentence or on an email or something like that. Okay? So, what should I call you? Now that you know what to call me, what should I call you? I like this little cartoon. Teacher here talking to the kids. Says, okay, let's see. Jiwon, Juun, Juwon, Ju Young, and Jun Young. So today we're going to talk about nicknames. So here the teacher is doing it because, talking about nicknames, because all of these kids have similar sounding names. And that's a good reason to choose nicknames, so it's easier to tell people apart. But that's not the main reason for using nicknames. And so in this class, I am going to ask you to use an English nickname in this class. Why? There's a few reasons for that. When you are studying a language, it's very, very common to use a nickname in that language. It does a few different things. It kind of puts you in the right mindset. Kind of like, okay, now I'm going to think in English, I'll use my English nickname. We call that the mindset, kind of your way of thinking. Also, when you're studying a language, you sort of have like or English, you have like an English persona, like your personality. So if you use that nickname, when you're using that in class, it kind of helps you create that attitude or that personality. Because when you do speak another language, you do change a little bit. You're the same person, but your maybe your gestures, your expressions, your way of saying things is different. Okay? When I was in high school, I took French class. And in French class, we had to choose a French nickname. So I chose Jean. Jean. Oh, Jean is like blue jeans. Jean. It's actually also a woman's name, Jean. Jean is also a man's name, but it's spelled differently. So, that's not how you say that in French. In French, it's pronounced Jean. Jean. So, John and Jean are kind of similar names in English and French, but they're different names. But they're kind of equal in those languages. In college, university, I took Spanish. And in Spanish class, we had to choose a Spanish nickname. So I chose Juan. Juan, just like the subway station over there. You know, like here's the university, Juan Station. Juan. Wait, okay, now in Korea, if you see something like this, in Korean, Juan, we pronounce that Juan in English. But how do you say that in Spanish? It's not Juan. It's pronounced Juan. Juan. The J sounds like an H in English. Juan. So again, John and Juan are sort of equivalent names, but different. Several years ago, I took a short Korean course, and in that class, we had to choose a Korean nickname. So I chose the name Minsung. Now, Minsung does not sound like John. It's not similar to John. But I didn't have any idea what was a good name or a bad name or even a boy's name or a girl's name. So I borrowed my friend's name. So when you choose a nickname to use in this class, maybe you can choose something that sounds similar to your real name. That works for some people, it doesn't for others. It depends on your name. Or, if you can't find one that sounds kind of similar, maybe you just choose a name that you've heard that you like. Maybe a friend, maybe a famous person, an actor, or a character in a book or a movie or a song. Just a name that you've heard that you like. Try to stick with like real names, normal names, so we don't have like, you know, Spider-Man and Beyonce. Okay, those aren't like normal names. Okay. Also, in Korean, your name has a special meaning. Names in English also have special meanings. So maybe you will want to choose a name that has a similar meaning to your real name. You can do that too. So, how many of you already have an English nickname that you use sometimes? Do any of you already have a nickname you use? Nobody? Okay. So, if you're going to choose a nickname, if you need some ideas, if you need some help, where can you look? Internet. Okay. So like if you go to Google, would you search for nicknames? No, then you're gonna get like silly names, kind of funny names or something probably. But you want normal names. When do people choose names? When do people choose names? When they're having a baby. That's when they start looking at names and thinking about names, choosing a name for their baby. So what you actually want to search for is baby names. You're not babies, but you're choosing a name. One simple website you can look at is babynames.com. Now, if you search Google for baby names, there's thousands of websites. Thousands of them. So if you don't like babynames.com, choose a different one. But you can search for like popular names, common names for different years. You can search for boys' names and girls' names. You can also look at the meanings of names. Okay? So that's a good place to start to help you choose your nickname. Okay? All right, this is a good place to stop and take a break. Okay? We'll take about a 10-minute break. When we come back, I will check attendance. And if you have a nickname, you can go ahead and give me that tonight. Okay? If you don't have one, that's okay. But please choose one by next week. Okay? At the latest. All right? Okay, let's take about 10 minutes. I knew that would take a few minutes. Okay, so that's most of you. If you didn't choose one, or if you decide you want to change what you chose tonight, just make sure you do that before our next class, because your next assignment is this. Have all of you joined the Cacao group chat? If you have not, please join the Cacao group chat. The link for that is on iClass. Okay, so make sure you do that. And then in Cacao chat, change your Cacao profile name in the group chat to this format. Oh, actually, sorry. I forgot to change that. This is class number 2, so that is incorrect. It should be PEFB, that's for Practical English for Finance and Banking, PEFB-2. Okay, because you guys are class 2. I'm sorry, I forgot to modify that before class tonight. PEFB-2, your real name, and then your English nickname. Remember, names in English are capitalized, so please use a capital letter there. Okay? So, PEFB-2. That way, if you send me a one-to-one, a private cacao message, it will show that name. That will tell me which class you are in. This semester, I've got about 200 students. So if I get a message with no class name on it, it's confusing. Because then I have to try to search and figure out who you are, which class you're in. Okay, so please do that in the group chat. It does not, that does not change your main cacao profile. Okay, it's only in the group chat. Okay? I see a bunch of you doing that now, which is fine. So again, make sure PEFB-2. Okay, -2. Class number 1 is on Wednesday night. You guys are on Thursday night. I forgot to change that before class tonight. Okay? All right, some basic information for the semester. My office hours. My office number is 6-107. So this is building 6. Okay? If you go down to the elevator, go down to the first floor. When you come out on the first floor, you'll see that print and copy center. Turn right. I'm just down the hall. Okay? Building 6, 107, that's the first floor. Okay? Most of my classes are on Monday and Thursday. You guys aren't on campus on Monday, are you? Are you all working like full-time jobs during the day? Are you all working? You have like regular daytime job? Okay, so this probably won't work for you, but Monday and Thursday from 12 to 1, that is my lunch break. I have classes before and after that, but I will normally be in my office. I usually just bring food with me, but if you're working, you wouldn't be able to come anyway. But I would say if you do happen to be here, let me know you're coming, because sometimes I might go to the cafeteria or go to the convenience store to get something. Okay. And I will also be available before class. I'll be in my office from about 6 to 7 before this class, or you can talk to me after class. Okay. If that does not work for you, if that's not possible, we can try to make an appointment, even just for chat. Okay. And of course, you can send a cacao message anytime. Okay. And I don't care if you send a message late at night. Okay. If I'm busy or if I'm sleeping, I won't answer right away, but it's there. So I'll answer it when I can. Okay. But I don't get upset if you send to me a message late at night. Okay. A lot of times I'm up late. I'm not a morning person unless I have to be, like when I have class. So if you send a message at night, I might be awake. Okay? If you have a more detailed, a more complicated message, you can send an email, okay? Short messages, simple questions, use Kakao Chat. It's faster, okay? If it's a general question about the class, just put it in the group chat. If it's a question about the schedule or the exam or something, just use the group chat so everybody can see it, okay? If it's more individual, like about your attendance or your score or something, then a one-on-one private chat is better, okay? Email is also available 24 hours, okay? Again, if you send a message and I'm busy or sleeping or in class or something, then obviously I'll answer when I have a chance. It doesn't matter if you send an email in the middle of the night. It doesn't, it's just email, so it doesn't really matter, okay? My address is John X. Hall. That's my first name, middle initial, last name, no space, no period. John X. Hall at inha.ac.kr, okay? If you send me an email, there are some guidelines for you. You should have an international email address. Now, right now for this class, this isn't as important because I'm using the INHA email address. But what used to happen, I used to use just a Gmail address, and sometimes students would send an email from Hanmail or Naver or Dom, and I would receive it, but then I would answer, but like Hanmail would block it because it's not Korean. So be careful with that, especially if any of you are looking for like an internship or a job or just communicating with international companies, customers, partners. Don't use something like Hanmail or Dom because they limit who you can talk to, okay? So you might email them, but then you will not receive their reply. So be careful with that. You also need a professional email address. If you're using an old email address that you made in middle school, if it includes the word genius, muscle, cute, sexy, something like that, those aren't cute anymore. Okay, those are not professional email addresses. Okay, it might be cute when you're in high school, muscle man or cute girl or something like that, but not now. All right, so if you don't have a professional sounding email address, you might want to change that. If you email me, include your class, your name, and ID. Okay, in the subject line, include your class, PEFB-2. Okay, that's all you need to write, PEFB-2, your English nickname, and then I will give you a short ID number. Okay, when I have, like this semester, when I have a lot of students, I've got about 200 students this semester, I will assign you a short ID number, like a 4-digit number that tells me which class you're in and who you are, so that if you have a question about your grades or something, I can quickly find it. Okay? And then you can write, your topic, like attendance or something like that. Okay? Do that in the subject line of your email. If you are sending me an attachment, please do not send an HWP file. Okay, HWP works great for Hangul. It does not work well for English. Okay, it's designed for Hangul. English formatting, fonts, spacing do not look right. Plus, for me, they're really hard to open. So I don't open them. Okay. So if you send me an HWP file, I will just reply and say, please send me a Word file or a PDF. So like Word files, MS Word, PDF, image files are fine, not HWP. Okay? All right, attendance. Now that we are back on campus, a lot of university policies are going back to the way they were before COVID. Okay, so attendance is one of those. Of course, attendance is required. Okay. That bottom line, it's in the wrong order, but actually it's really important. If you have 4 absences, that is an automatic F. Okay, because that's 25% of the semester. Actually, more than 25% of the semester. So if you have 4 absences, you automatically fail. Okay. So, we'll talk more about that. Attendance is required. If you are absent, there are 2 types of absences. If you have a good reason for being absent, you can have an excused absence, which means there's no penalty. If you do not have a good reason, that's an unexcused absence, and you will lose points for that. Okay? So, if you have a good reason for being absent, we do need official documentation for excused absences. EG means for example. So when you read that, you could say e.g., military duty, or you could say, for example, military duty, illness, hospitalization, a death in the family, a job interview, etc. Those are all good reasons, valid reasons to miss a class. Okay? And there's no deduction for that. Now, for that documentation, you should submit it to your department office, and if they approve it, they will send you a paper for attendance. That's the document I need from your department. Okay, the approval. Now, sometimes there are things that the university might not approve, but I might. Maybe. So if you've got something important, but the university says, sorry, that doesn't qualify, talk to me about it. Okay? Maybe I will agree with you. I might say, yeah, that's a good reason. I understand. I might say, no, sorry, you need to be in class, or you will lose points. Okay, depends on what it is. Club activities, other volunteer activities are optional. You are not required to do those. and are generally not considered excused absences. So for example, if you're in I was gonna say soccer club, but they probably don't play soccer at night. But if you're in a club like music or something, and they're just playing on Thursday night, that's not an excused absence. But if your club is performing at the Blue House, that's a big deal. So I would probably excuse that, okay, because that's a very rare and special thing. Unexcused absences means you don't have a good reason. Not a valid reason for an absence. You're tired. Now, I understand you're going to be tired because you're working, and this is a late evening class. I understand that. But if you just skip class because you're tired, you're going to lose a point, or you're going to lose points, okay? Because attendance is required. Because we only meet once a week, each 3-hour class is actually like 2 classes. So if you skip an entire class, that's a 2-point deduction from your final grade. That's 2% off your final grade, because you're missing an entire week of class because we only meet one night. If you are more than 30 minutes late, that's the same as an absence. Now, like I said, this is like 2 classes. So if you come at like 7:40, you'll be considered absent for that first half of class. So that's only 1 point deduction. Okay. But if you come 40 minutes late and you leave 30 minutes early, then you're absent for both. Okay. This also applies to leaving early. Like when we take a break, if you decide, oh, time to go home, then you're going to be absent for the second half. Okay, so please don't try to sneak out during the break and go home early. If you're less than 30 minutes late one time, nothing happens. If you're less than 30 minutes late twice, nothing happens, because we're all late sometimes. Things happen. But if you are late 3 times, less than 30 minutes, that counts as 1 absence. Again, if it's just at the beginning of class, that's a 1 point deduction. Okay, not 2 points. Okay? Does that make sense? And of course, if you have 4 absences, 4 entire classes, or if you're late 8 times, then that would be an automatic F. Okay, more than 30 minutes late. Or you leave 30 minutes early. Okay, that if you get that many in total, that's an automatic F. That's a department. That's a university policy. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay, grading. This is how your points are distributed for the course. Attendance and participation is 10%. You start with 10%. If you're late, if you're absent, then points are deducted. Okay? Or if you're sleeping during class. Now, again, I know you're going to be tired. If you're fighting it, I might just tell your neighbor to wake you up. But if you close your books, put your head down, grab your blanket, and just go to bed, then you're going to basically be absent. Okay, because you're not participating, you're not here, you're in dreamland. Okay, so if you are in dreamland, you are not present in class. Okay? You'll have some simple homework assignments, okay? Maybe a worksheet, handout, work that you're supposed to do and show me. Some will be written things that you, like handouts that you need to do and complete and show me that you've done the work. Others will be things that you submit in the group chat, things that you just, answers that you write in the group chat or comments in the group chat. That's going to be worth 10% of your grade. The midterm exam is 35% of your final grade, and the final exam is 45% of your final grade. Now, the final exam is cumulative. Cumulative. Do you know what that means? Okay, do you know the word accumulate? Accumulate. If it snows, you start off with just a few flakes on the ground. No problem. If it keeps snowing, you get like a layer of snow. If it keeps snowing, it starts to build up. It starts to accumulate, to build up. So if something accumulates, snow on the ground, rain, homework assignments, if things accumulate, they build up. Or it can also mean like to gather together, to accumulate, to gather, okay? Cumulative means, like for an exam, that means it includes the entire semester. It keeps building. And that's because things that we will study here at the very beginning of the semester, some very basic things, are things that you will need to use throughout the semester. So you need to learn them now so you can use them at the end of the semester also. So I can't separate those like first half and second half. So the final exam includes everything from the semester. It can include everything from the semester. Okay? All right. Any questions on that? Okay, the course uses relative grading. Sometimes we say a grading curve. Okay? Now, during COVID, the university sort of relaxed the curve and made it easier, made it possible for more people to get an A. Now that we are back on campus, they are tightening that again and making it a little more difficult to get an A. Okay, this is a university decision, university policy, so please don't be angry at me. During COVID, they relaxed it so that like 40% of a class could receive an A, and there was no limit on how many Bs. So basically, everybody in a class could get an A or a B. Okay, that has changed. Now, a maximum of 35% of you can get an A, and A's and B's combined together is a maximum of 80%. So unfortunately, that means that at least 20% of you will receive a C or below. C, D, or F. Okay. That is a university policy. Not my decision. Please do not be angry at me. Okay, it's not my choice. And these numbers I must follow. When I enter grades, I cannot give an extra A. It's not possible. It's built into the portal that I cannot change that. Okay. So just remember, it's the university, not me. Okay, are there any questions about that? About the attendance or grading? No? Okay. All right. The other thing that we're going to be using is called Moodle, which is, you've probably never heard of. That's the program, the software that runs iClass. Okay, so we just call it iClass. Some of the things you will find on iClass is a textbook. Okay, it's kind of hard to find, and I found a PDF version of the book I am using. It's a pretty simple book, really. It's more like a workbook, but it's there aren't a lot of books for what I wanted to do in this class. So the textbook is called Check Your English Vocabulary for Banking and Finance. This is the second edition. Unfortunately, they have not made a more recent edition, so you will notice some of the examples seem kind of old. Okay, but the basic structure, basic information in the book, I like. There is a PDF version of this book on iClass that I found on the internet. If you look at the table of contents, you'll see there are many chapters. Okay, there's actually like 30 chapters there. We will not cover all of the chapters. Okay, but they're really not even chapters. They're short. Okay. You saw on the title, it's a workbook. So like most textbooks, they have several pages of reading and then some questions at the end. This just has the questions. So some of the stuff you will already know or be familiar with, and you just need to answer the questions. Other things, like vocabulary or something, you might need to look it up. Okay, use the internet, do some research. Other things, you will need to look up, what does this mean? How do I use this? Okay, so you'll need to kind of study to do the exercises. The first unit in the book, I call them units because they're not really chapters because they're so short. The first unit we will do in the book is Unit 27, which deals with numbers and statistics. I like to do it first because for everything else we're going to do, or everything you do in finance and banking, you use numbers. So it's important to get those right. And you might think, well, I know how to use a calculator. I'm good at math. And that I'm sure you are. But can you use those numbers? Can you talk about those numbers in English? And that's where the challenge comes in. Over the years, living in Korea, I have seen many people working at banks, for airlines, and just regular cashiers that have trouble with numbers in English. So that's something we're going to look at and spend some time on at the beginning. Now this is what Unit 27 looks like. This is the first page. They've just got some matching questions here. Match the numbers and the phrases. And part B at the bottom. Match the numbers with the phrases. So those are pretty simple, okay? But these things, I'm sure that you know the math, but do you know how to say it in English? And that's what we're here for. Before we do Unit 27, we're going to do some practice with just reading and writing numbers in English. Okay? And this is where I see so many people struggle and make mistakes. And some of those mistakes obviously can be confusing. They could also cause major serious problems, especially if you do that in a business environment. If you have the decimal point in the wrong place, if you say 5,000 instead of 500, that can cause a problem. Okay? So the first handout we're going to use is this one-page handout. This is on iClass, okay? And this is simply called How to Write Numbers with Words. Okay? And you'll notice on here, there's a lot of text in bold. There's some things in green, some things in red. That means pay attention to them. Okay? So before next week's class, I want you to read through this very carefully. Okay, now you might think, I know how to read numbers. Okay. We'll find out. Okay. And some of them, a lot of this is very basic, very simple, but it's very important that you do it precisely and correctly. Like writing numbers in words, spelling, spacing, punctuation. If you use a hyphen, a dash, a comma, the word and, all of those things make a difference. So it's simple, but it's detailed. So it's important to learn how to do it correctly. My undergraduate degree, my bachelor's degree, was in math teaching. So I learned how to read numbers correctly. There are specific rules that must be followed. So it's important that you get them right. So this is what it looks like. Just, I want you to read through it, pay attention to all of the examples, make sure you understand it, and we'll go through it together next week. And then this next one, this is just an image file, but it's simply numbers in English, okay? Now, it was amazing to me how difficult it was to find a page like this, an image that I liked, because so many of them had mistakes, or they did things I didn't like, or they weren't organized well. I like this one, except in this area, that green box at the bottom, they do things a little differently, because this is from the UK, I believe. So they use British English, which on some things with numbers is a little different than American English. Okay, so I'll point out those differences. I'm from the US, so I will focus on the American version. Okay, and I'll explain why. Because to me, the way they do some of this in British English is confusing. I'm surprised they do it because it is really confusing. But I will explain those differences. So I want you to take a look at that one also. Okay. Again, it's a simple handout, but you'll see why we're talking about this. Okay. So let me just. I'm going to go to. iClass and just show you some of that. Don't copy my password. Okay, so if you look at iClass here, the syllabus is here if you want to review that. Okay, you can take a look at that, like the breakdown of the scores and stuff. The Cacao link is here if you need that, or if you change devices or something and you need to find that group again, it's there. If we ever need to do a Zoom class for some reason, the link is there. You just click on that, click here, and it will open the Zoom meeting. This is the PDF file for the textbook. Okay. Don't print the entire book. Okay, you don't need the entire book. Okay, we're not going to use all of it. We will do about 5 chapters at the end of the book and about 5 chapters at the beginning of the book. Okay. You can print it if you want to, but we won't use all of it in class. Okay? So, go ahead, you can print 27, 28, 29, 30 if you want to. Okay, we will be looking at those. This is the numbers one I just showed you, the handout. It's a PDF file, so if you click here, it will download it and you can print that out. I would recommend printing this, bring it to class with you so you can make notes on it, okay? And this is the other table I just showed you with the numbers. And it says this chart is pretty good, but there are a couple of errors in the green box at the bottom. And this is just an image file. Okay, so you can print the image file, or you can paste it onto into like a Word file and then print it. Okay, if you want to print it out, if you want a printed copy. Okay. This next one, this place value chart, we're going to look at that next. This one is a PDF file. It is 30 pages long. You do not need to print the entire file. Okay? What I would recommend, print the first page. Okay? Don't print 30 pages. Okay? But I would recommend printing just this first page. Then there's some other things here that we're going to be looking at. These are basically in the order that we're going to use them. Okay, there's a couple videos here, phrasal verbs. And then you'll notice there are two things here called Catch Me If You Can. Okay. Have any of you seen the movie Catch Me If You Can? It's a movie starring Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio. It's a great movie. One of my favorite movies. In the movie, there are a lot of references, examples of writing checks, talking about bank routing numbers, check fraud, counterfeiting, lots of examples related to banking and financial crime. So, during the semester, I want you to watch this movie, okay? So I wanted to go ahead and mention it to you now, in case maybe you have some time before, since it's the beginning of the semester, maybe you're not so busy yet, or maybe during Chuseok, if you've got some time, you can watch the movie, okay? We will not watch the movie in class, but later on we will talk about certain scenes. So when you watch it, pay attention when they talk about the banking information. There are a lot of scenes inside banks where they talk about routing numbers and writing checks, and again, check fraud and counterfeiting. Pay attention to those scenes, okay? Now, I've got two versions of the movie here. The first one, the folder, you can see here, it contains a movie script. I just found the script online, so I put it on here. We're not really going to look at it, but if you want to look at the written movie script, you can do that. So if you open this folder, you'll see there's three video files here. Okay? I just recorded it in 3 different sections, just to make the files a little bit smaller when I did it, and to make sure it was working. This version has English subtitles. Okay? So the movie is in English with English subtitles. I realize for some people that even with the English subtitles, it might be a little difficult to understand. So I bought a copy of the movie with Korean subtitles, and that's what this is. Okay, this is the full movie with Korean subtitles, and this one is video on demand. You should just be able to click here and play. Sorry. Yeah, and it will start playing. Okay. And this one will give you Korean subtitles. Okay. I do not know how accurate the subtitles are. I know a lot of times my Korean is not that good, not good at all. But even I can see sometimes on like a TV show or something that they get things wrong, especially numbers. I've noticed that a lot, like an address or an amount. Many times they get the numbers wrong on the subtitles. I haven't paid attention. I haven't actually watched this and looked at the Korean subtitles. Hopefully, because it's a major movie, hopefully the subtitles are good. I hope. But anyway, that's just something you can work on, something you can start watching. It's a great movie, it's a fun movie, but also kind of serious, okay? And it relates to what we will be talking about this semester, okay? So, an assignment for you. Any questions? Okay guys, thank you. Have a good night. I'll see you next week.